Okay. Greetings. Greetings, pool players, pool fans, and pool community at large. My name is Nate Tam. I am a pool enthusiast, along with many other things, and I have a message for you. We have a problem on our hands. And before I get to that, let me preface it by first saying this. My perspective is someone who comes from the world of marketing. I'm a video editor. I have been for 15 years. I cut a lot of short films, feature films, music videos, and just lots and lots of marketing content, lots of ads. And I'm actually pretty new to pool. I've only been playing a couple years, but I quickly became a pool nut, and rightly so, because it's a beautiful game. But as a marketing professional who is new to pool, I think I have a perspective on the current state of the game and the future of the game. And as I talk to other players and non-players, I realized that we do have a really big problem. More specifically, we have a public perception problem. And before all the keyboard warriors give me shit with like, this is just the way it's always been, and this is the way the game is supposed to be. Hold your horse. I'll get to you in a second. Just listen for a minute. Because I see you and I see that perspective. I do. But the problem is that issue, that public perception issue, is real. And it hinders the game from growing in a healthy way. We just have this huge bottleneck issue where only if you see the game as it really is and not as this giant black hole of gamblers and swindlers and just shitty lowlives, until we get rid of that issue, you don't really have a huge opportunity to grow the sport. What is really going to get people to view our sport, participate in our sport, that aren't already there? So let's break it down. Number one is pool news and talk. And I'm mentioning this first because honestly, I don't think it's their place for like podcasts and YouTube channels and the like to have the burden of trying to grow the sport. Let's be honest, look at every other sport. People who talk about it should kind of be in their own vacuum because you're already interested if you're on that platform. So to the podcasts and the YouTubers out there, good job, keep doing what you're doing. I like it. Number two is pool TV and streaming. You could argue that Matchroom and Omega Billiards and Pool Action TV and Facebook groups and other streamers as of late have been doing the most to get the eyes on the sport. And it's not a knock on them or their goals, but I do think it would be helpful to sort of take a step back and look at what's outside of your bubble. And so here's what I mean by that. What might be considered, quote, smart TV for pool to Matchroom, let's just say it's Matchroom. I get it. They want high levels of engagement, they want ticket sales, they want to create a buzz, and they want to draw a lot of eyes to their platform. But really, let's be honest, the people who are tuning in and buying tickets are pool players almost every time. And I don't think we should confuse enthusiasm for growth. Like 9-ball is arguably a great game for TV. We all know the argument. It's fast and more or less easy to understand. It has elements of excitement and safeties, but I mean, you ask anyone on the street, 9 out of 10 times, if they know the game of pool, they know 8-ball. That's kind of the pedestrian view of what pool is. And look, I get that 8-ball is probably not a great game for TV or very much pro pool, but that's a non sequitur because it is the most recognizable game. People don't want to learn new shit. People want to relate to shit they already know. So we should find a way. I'm not saying 8-ball should be the life of the party. I just think take that note. We should at least consider how to implement that knee-jerk reaction of, I know what that is. I've seen that before. I played that before. They want to connect to something emotionally. They want to remember an experience and say, wait, pros do this? And so they don't see 9-ball or 10-ball on TV or their Facebook feed. They don't go, hey, I know this game. I like this game. That's just not something that happens. And then they hear Jeremy Jones chime in. He'll use a touch of inside and land heavy on the 5 and draw back so he can play shape on the 6-9 kiss shot. That's not something people can understand. It's all pool jargon. And I love JJ. I do. I think he's an awesome commentator for me. There's no way anyone finds a game of 9 or 10 ball and understands pool jargon like that. Like, it just doesn't happen. I'm sorry. So if you want to engage the casual channel surfer, there are lots of ways that we can help them. So we should help them. We should find a way to make it easy and engaging to watch? Where are the on-screen pattern lines and annotations and tip placement graphics and brake speed measurements in miles per hour? And, like, we should be spoon feeding this information to the audience in a way that they can understand if they've never even seen or heard of a pool table before. And yeah, like, I get it. Like, the production elements of, like, the graphics and everything, that takes money and that takes time and that takes a lot of resources. But I'm sorry, good camera work and some motion graphics transitions can only go so far. Like, when my wife sees me watching the Mosconi Cup, and I explain what the tournament means and why it's dramatic, and I just dissect what the commentators are saying, then she goes, oh, that's interesting. I get that now. But why did it have to take me explaining it in that way for her to be interested? It shouldn't. As much as I commend Matchroom for everything they're doing for the sport, and they are doing a great job, they're approaching it from an angle that doesn't get new people to watch. Even if you get decent viewers, all of your viewers already know what is happening. And that's not a knock on everything else that they are doing as well, like putting on more tournaments and really investing the money and the time into professional players and trying to raise the professionalism of the sport. That's great. It's just the presentation to people who don't know pool already that should really be looked at. Okay, so number 3, pool ambassadors. So how often do we bring up Joe Rogan in the world of pool when he has literally done nothing for the sport to grow it, considering his giant ass platform that he has? And I'm only picking on him because it's a really clear-cut example. I mean, there are a lot of celebrity pool enthusiasts, but we don't hear from them. We don't know what they do, right? But could you imagine a match between Joe Rogan and Tom Cruise? Hell yeah, I'd watch the shit out of that. We can make some money with that. We can make some buzz out of that. Come on. It doesn't have to be just celebrity pool players. We can take our pro pool players and we can make stories out of who they are and what they do. Why do you think Naoki Oi is so great for the sport? It's because he's interesting on and off of the table. We should be doing something with that, guys. Like, put our most interesting ambassadors out to the world for them to see in a way that can actually reach a general audience. And so that sort of brings me into number 4, which is pool media and storytelling. So as an example, if you look at the Queen's Gambit, just look at what that did for the game of chess. The buzz around chess just exploded after the Queen's Gambit because now you have something relatable. You have something that is interesting, that has a story that is linked to this game. And now people are interested in the game. There's no reason we can't do the same kind of thing for pool. And everything, of course, takes money, and you can't just like produce a TV show or come up with a story without some serious production and planning. But again, it's just the thought. I mean, there are more or less cheap ways to get good stories out there. Follow Naoki Oi around and see what his life is like. He's a larger-than-life character. Everyone in the world should know this guy. Like, he's so interesting. Give something to the general audience out there that is emotional, that people can go, hey, that guy's a what? He's a pool player? Stories make people interested. This is also why I think Matchroom is also doing a really good job, because they have those little 2-minute interviews between racks on their TV table. That's great, but dive a little deeper. Let's learn something even more about the characters. Follow them around a little more. Not just a 10-minute interview that you have with them near the event, and then you send it to an editor, he cuts it together in 10 minutes, and then there you have it. You could really make something interesting and tell a story, and then post just that story online and start getting more buzz outside of just the world of pool. You don't need to know the game to be interested in the story. Number 5 is League and casual play. I've never played in League, but I do know a little bit about it. I've heard all the nasty things about APA versus BCA, and all these organizations. You say what you want about them, but they do help spread the game and spread the game cleanly. There is no harm in letting casual players have that space, that they feel the enjoyment out of the game and the community out of the game. And if you're a more serious player or just like to play for money and you don't really care about League, that's fine. But you can't deny that League has a potentially great role for the future of the game, the popularity of the game, and the community the game has to offer. Number 6 is funding, and this is crucial, treating our pros right. So companies like Predator and QTech and CSI and Matchroom putting all these events on, $30,000 events, $25,000 added events. That's great. More of that, please. But let's be honest, that's not enough. It's a step in the right direction, but I think the next step is, find larger sponsors and bigger prizes. Because by and large, pro pool players are poor. Not dirt poor, but like honestly, they're a professional athlete. They should be making some money at least. And I think a product of this, which is even stranger, is that the accessibility and the closeness that pool players and fans have with their professional players is unlike any other sport in the world. It's fantastic, but also, dare I say, paradoxically, tragic. And it's not like that all pro pool players want to live extravagantly and have a public life. Like, by and large, they probably don't. But also, wouldn't that kind of be great if we revered our pros and the general public had that same sort of relationship with them? Not that we should idolize our pros, but I just mean in general, the relationship you have with LeBron James versus the relationship you have with Shane Van Boening, both at the top of the game in their respective sports. Come on, you can't compare the two. And that, I think, brings our game a disservice in the long run. It's great. It's super cool for pool players and fans, but it doesn't really send the message that we should be taken seriously as a sport. So we have to find a way to raise the professionalism of the game. And honestly, the way we talk about it, the way our gambling culture is, and the way that we're kind of okay with that hurts them financially. That comes around and bites them in the ass. And we are consistently financially failing our professional players over and over again. You might just be a casual player with no really direct effect on pro players in their lives, but collectively, we have a responsibility to lift up professionalism of the game. And frankly, so do the pros. They have to carry themselves in a professional way too. This morning, I opened up Facebook and I saw a video, just 40 or 50 pool players coming out of Rack 'em Grill. They're in the parking lot and they're all placing bets on whether or not someone can throw a golf ball at a water tower 100 yards away. Cool video, fun and interesting. And if you know those guys, it's really interesting. But again, if I wasn't into pool and I saw that, I'm like, this is kind of weird and shady, and these guys are all professional players. No other sport in the world acts like that. I mean, you have poker, but what other sport has professional players thriving and living off of gambling just to pay their rent? And there's nothing wrong placing your bets and playing for money and having these great action matches like freaking SVB versus Dennis, Tony Chohan versus Alex Pagulayan. I watch the shit out of that. I pay for that every time. But that's a different thing than just divulging into a culture that is okay with the image that people see us as. I don't think that's okay. And this is not to be like you should only care what people think of you. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying it is all connected. And there's no shortcut to this. The main issue of fixing our sports image has to be improved if you want to do right by our professionals. They deserve it, and no amount of "I'm sorry" is because this is the way it is can't just make up for us financially failing our pros over and over again. And we should think about that and the ethics of that. The pedestrian is not really tied to pool in any way, so they don't understand our culture. So we have to do the work in raising the profile of what it means to be part of this game. And that leads me to number 7, the gambling issue. And I am all for money matches. I'm all for whatever action you want in your local pool room, but we cannot pretend it is not a problem. And yes, in general, the loudest voices get the most ears, and hustlers and sharks and swindlers are just a sliver of us, but they carry an oversized weight on our image. And yeah, I know it's not really gambling, it's a test of skill and yada yada. That's not really the point. The point is how it's seen. And sometimes how it's seen is something we don't mind. And the repercussions of that are something that trickles down. And in turn, we just let the game suffer because we're unwilling to change that perception. It seems selfish, doesn't it? I mean, look, I have zero judgment for you if you want to play for money and action is the main reason you play pool. But you know what? you can have both positions simultaneously. I do. You can play for money and still recognize that we should advocate for the professionalism of the sport. So like I said, I'm pretty new to pool, and my thoughts on what pool is have changed since I got hooked on the game. And I also used to think it was a game for degenerate gamblers and swindlers until a friend of mine taught me better. And honestly, that's how you get into pool. Every time, it's because you've learned that it's a better game than you originally thought it was. And that joy of like finding this hidden gem of a thing you thought it was, but it's something it isn't, and learning the complexities of such a simple game and the community that comes with that, and it's that feeling that is awesome. And that's what we should be advocating for. That's the story we should be telling. But sadly, we see it almost nowhere. So, I mean, that's my spiel. That's my rant. Done. Over. We all love pool, so please be nice. Okay.